Golden Tales.
Every morning at exactly 8 o'clock, the woman arrived at the train station. She wore the same faded brown coat, a wool scarf wrapped tightly around her neck, and carried a small leather handbag that had long lost its shine. Her gray hair was always neatly pinned into a bun. She sat on the same bench, right under the old clock tower, facing platform 3. The station workers had grown used to her presence. Most of them called her Miss Eleanor, though no one really knew if that was her real name. She never corrected them. She never talked much. But she always sat there, waiting. Children had grown up seeing her there. Some had even left the town and come back years later, only to find her still sitting on the same bench, in the same spot, with the same quiet gaze fixed on the tracks. She was not homeless. That much was clear. Her clothes were always clean, her posture proud, her eyes filled with something that looked like both sorrow and patience. Nobody ever dared to ask why she came. They simply accepted that she belonged to the station just as much as the trains, the rusted rails, and the pigeons fluttering overhead. But what they did not know was that Eleanor came for someone. Someone she had once promised to wait for. Someone who said he would return on a spring morning many years ago. Someone who never did. It was 40 years ago when Eleanor first stepped onto that platform. It was the last time she held his hand, the last time she saw his smile before he boarded the train to another life, a life that never brought him back. Eleanor never told anyone the full story, not even her sister who sent letters once a month, begging her to leave that old town behind. Not the young station manager who offered to bring her tea every winter morning, not even the kind nun who sometimes stopped to pray beside her. Eleanor just waited. And on one rainy morning in late October, something changed. A young woman carrying a large suitcase approached the bench, looked directly into Eleanor's eyes, and asked quietly, "Are you waiting for Thomas?" Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. No one had spoken that name aloud in decades. She looked up slowly, her lips trembling, and whispered her first words in weeks. "Yes, yes, I am." The name hung in the cold autumn air like a secret finally released. Thomas. Eleanor's breath caught in her chest, as if someone had reached inside and pulled loose a thread that had been tightly wound for decades. Her eyes widened not with fear, but with something else, something softer, a memory perhaps, a sound, a scent, a moment. Her thin fingers clutched the leather handle of her old handbag. It trembled ever so slightly. The young woman who had said his name looked to be no older than 25. Her cheeks were flushed from the wind. Her hair was damp, sticking to her temples, and her eyes, those eyes had the same color as his. Eleanor blinked. "I beg your pardon," she said, her voice barely more than a breath. The young woman sat beside her on the wooden bench, ignoring the cold seeping up from the worn slats. She looked directly into Eleanor's eyes. "I am sorry to disturb you. I have just... I have heard about you. I was told there was a woman here who waits every day for someone named Thomas." Eleanor looked away, her gaze drifting to the tracks where the 8:12 train had long since passed. Most people came and went. Even the station changed with time, new tiles, new signs, the smell of paint and progress. But she had remained, and so had her silence, until now. "I have not spoken that name," Eleanor whispered. "Not in years. Not even in my prayers." The young woman's fingers were wrapped tightly around her suitcase strap. I think he might have been my grandfather." Eleanor turned to her, truly seeing her for the first time. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came. She remembered the last day. She remembered it so clearly it burned. Thomas had kissed her forehead. He had promised, "Just 1 year, Ellie, just one. Then I will come back with enough to marry you, right?" But he never came back. Not a letter, not a telegram, not even a rumor. For years, Eleanor searched. She sent letters, made phone calls, even traveled to nearby towns. But Thomas had vanished, as if swallowed by the earth. Eventually, people stopped asking. Her sister told her to move on. Even the priests stopped including Thomas's name in the prayer list. But Eleanor could not leave. She could not leave the place where she had last seen his eyes, where she had last heard his voice whisper her name like a promise. "Who are you?" Eleanor asked, gently. "Who told you to find me?" The young woman hesitated, then opened her suitcase slowly. From it, she pulled a worn leather journal, cracked at the edges and stained with time. "This belonged to my father," she said. "He died last winter. In his last days, he spoke of a woman who waited. He said she would be near the clock tower. that she never gave up. She opened the journal to a folded letter tucked into its spine. Eleanor's hands shook as she took it. She recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Thomas's. She pressed the paper to her lips before opening it, her heart beating like a war drum in her fragile chest. The words were simple. My dearest Eleanor, I am sorry. I hope one day this letter finds you. And if it does, know this. I never stopped loving you. But I was taken away before I could return. Please forgive me. Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes, not the tears of bitterness or rage, but of release. She had waited 40 years, not for answers, but for closure, for the truth, for the love that had never truly died. As the wind blew softly around them, the young woman placed a hand on Eleanor's. His name was Thomas Whitmore. And I think you were the great love of his life. Eleanor looked at her, and for the first time in years, she smiled a sad, tired smile, but a real one. I waited, she whispered, and somehow, that was enough. The year was 1946. The war had ended, but its shadow still lingered in every dusty corner of the small town of Wexley. Streets bore the weight of memories, and people moved slower not because of age, but because of what they had lost. The world was learning how to breathe again. Eleanor was 23. She had auburn hair that danced with the wind, a soft face that had not yet learned how to hide emotion, and hands that carried both grace and labor. She worked at Langley's bookstore, a modest little shop tucked between an abandoned Taylor's and a bakery that smelled of warm cinnamon every morning. She lived with her mother and younger sister in a 2-bedroom apartment above the florist. Her father had never returned from the war. They received a telegram, a folded flag, and silence. Her mother never cried where anyone could see, but sometimes Eleanor would hear her sobbing at night behind the closed door, muffled into a pillow. On Tuesday mornings, Eleanor visited the train station to buy fresh newspapers and to send her sister's letters to a distant cousin. She liked the station, the sound of boots on the marble, the rhythm of whistles, and the way everyone always seemed to be headed somewhere. She, in contrast, felt like she was always staying behind. That morning, as she stepped onto the platform, holding a parcel wrapped in brown paper, she did not expect to meet anyone, but there he was, leaning against a rusted post near platform 3, a man in a beige military coat, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, reading a book. The way he read was not casual, he was absorbed. He squinted slightly, smiled at a passage, turned the page with care. Eleanor, without thinking, slowed her steps. He looked up, their eyes met for no more than 2 seconds, but it was enough to pull her heart into her throat. She blinked, embarrassed, and kept walking. But something, curiosity, perhaps, made her glance back. He was still looking at her. She hated what romance novels did to women's expectations, but even she could not deny that in that moment, something had happened. It was not love, not yet, but it was something undeniable. Later that afternoon, the bell above the bookstore door jingled, and there he was again. "Do you carry any Tolstoy?" he asked, his voice rich, low, and polite. Eleanor was stunned. Her voice caught in her throat for a second. Yes, we do. In the second aisle, bottom shelf." He walked with confidence, but not arrogance. And after he chose a copy of Resurrection, he returned to the counter and said, "You were at the station this morning." Eleanor hesitated. "So were you. My name is Thomas Whitmore. Eleanor. Just Eleanor." He nodded. "That is a beautiful name." Strong. She did not know what to say, so she handed him the book, took his coins, and tried not to smile too obviously when he lingered for just a moment longer, before walking out. From that day forward, Thomas became a regular customer, but he rarely bought anything. He came for conversation, for stolen glances, for the way Eleanor would tuck her hair behind her ear when nervous, for the way her laugh would escape before she could stop it. Thomas was a former sergeant. He had returned from France only 2 months earlier. He had seen things, he said, that made him doubt the goodness of the world. But then he met Eleanor, and something shifted. They began taking walks, short ones at first, then longer, through the park, past the river, under the elm trees where lovers carved initials in the bark. They spoke about books, about grief, about what it meant to live after the war. He told her he did not believe in fate. She told him she did. He said she had eyes that unsettled him. She said, good. They fell in love not like a firework, but like a sunrise, quietly, naturally, as if their hearts had always known where to go. One night, as they sat beneath the broken fountain near Wexley Square, Thomas took her hand. "I do not have much," he said, But I want to build something with you. A life. Eleanor's eyes welled with tears. Then let us build it. And so they did. Or at least, they tried. But fate, as always, had other plans. The letter arrived on a Wednesday. The envelope was creased, the ink slightly smudged, and it carried the official stamp of the Wexley Veterans Office. Eleanor stared at it for hours before opening it. Somehow, she already knew what it would say. Thomas had been offered a position with a railway company expanding westward, far west. Beyond the hills, beyond the cities, beyond anything familiar, a friend from the war had secured it for him. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the letter said. Good pay, a chance to finally build something steady. He would be gone for 12 months, maybe 13. But he promised he would come back. Eleanor read the letter again and again until the words no longer meant anything. When she finally saw him that evening, he was standing by the fountain, holding a folded map in one hand and her favorite flowers, violets, in the other. I wanted to tell you in person, he said, but I was afraid you would try to stop me. She said nothing at first. Her breath was shallow, her eyes fixed on the cobblestone beneath their feet. I would never stop you, she whispered. But I wish I could. Thomas took her hand. I need to do this, Ellie. For us, I want to come back with enough for a real home, a place where the roof does not leak and the windows face the sun. I want to marry you with something more than hope. I would marry you with nothing but hope, she said, her voice trembling. I know, he said. That is why I love you. They stood in silence. The kind of silence that swells between two hearts stretched to their limit. He kissed her forehead the way he always did when words failed him. I leave tomorrow, he said. From platform 3, 8 in the morning. Eleanor nodded, slowly, holding back tears with everything she had. Then I will be there. That night, Eleanor could not sleep. She sat by her window, watching the shadows move across the street, the trees rustling in the wind like whispers. Her mother knocked once, softly, but did not enter. Everyone knew what this meant. Everyone felt the weight of that coming goodbye. Eleanor wore her best dress the next morning, light blue, with small white buttons and a ribbon around the waist. Thomas had once said it made her look like the sky itself. She pinned her hair the way he liked, added a small brooch shaped like a bird, and walked to the station with slow, deliberate steps. The station was crowded that morning. Soldiers, merchants, children running with suitcases twice their size. But Eleanor only saw one man, Thomas. He was pacing by the tracks, glancing at his pocket watch, the folded map now sticking out of his coat pocket. When he saw her, his entire face softened. You came, he said. Of course I did. They had less than 15 minutes. Thomas reached into his coat and pulled out a small box. Inside was a simple silver ring. No diamond, no inscription, just a circle. Plain, honest, eternal. It is not an engagement ring, he said. It is a promise. I will come back, Eleanor. I swear it. And when I do, we will build that life. She nodded, speechless, tears brimming in her eyes. I will wait, she said. I will wait, no matter how long it takes. The train whistled. People started boarding. Thomas kissed her, a deep, slow, desperate kiss, as if he was memorizing the taste of her breath, the curve of her mouth, as if he knew he would need that memory to survive the coming months. I love you, he said against her forehead, and I will come back to you. She did not say goodbye. She could not. Instead, she watched him climb aboard, watched the door close, watched the train slowly pull away, its smoke rising into the pale morning sky like a curtain falling between two worlds. And when it was gone, Eleanor stood there, frozen, silent, with nothing but a silver ring in her palm and a promise echoing in her chest. She returned to that station the next morning, and the one after that, and the one after that, because he said he would come back, because he had promised. And Eleanor believed in promises. The first week after Thomas left, Eleanor returned to the station every morning at precisely 8 o'clock. She would sit on the same bench near platform 3, her hands folded neatly in her lap, the silver ring still warm on her finger. She imagined the moment he would step off the train, his coat dusty, his hair windswept, his voice calling her name. The world around her moved quickly, as if unaware of what she was waiting for. The station workers greeted her with polite nods. One of them, an older man with kind eyes named Mr. Helwens, asked if she was expecting someone. Eleanor had smiled and simply said, yes. He never asked again. By the third month, the whispers began. Women at the bakery would pause when she entered. Her co-workers at the bookstore, once curious, had grown impatient with her silence. Her younger sister, Lily, begged her to stop. "Please, Eleanor. You cannot just wait for someone who might never come back." But Eleanor only smiled, kissed her sister's forehead, and left for the station like she always did. She started bringing a book to read. Always the same one, Wuthering Heights. She had read it over a dozen times, but it gave her comfort. She imagined Thomas was reading it too, somewhere far away, with the same worn pages between his fingers. By the end of the first year, there was still no letter, no telegram, no news, no return. Eleanor went to the city's records office. She wrote to every railway company she could find. She even visited the military hospital where Thomas once worked after the war. But there was nothing, no death certificate, no report of injury, just nothing. It was as if he had vanished. Still, she waited. The second year came and went like a cold wind. Her friends stopped writing. Her bookstore manager offered her extra hours, hoping it would distract her. But Eleanor always refused any shift that started before 10 a.m. She needed her mornings. She needed her bench. She needed her chance. One snowy day, her mother sat her down at the kitchen table. "He is gone, Eleanor. You must let him go." Eleanor looked up, her eyes tired but unwavering. "You do not let go of someone who never let go of you." Her mother had no answer. By the 5th year, Eleanor had changed. Her hair began to gray at the edges. Fine lines appeared around her eyes. She smiled less, laughed almost never. But her steps to the station remained steady. The path was worn into her memory, each cobblestone, each crack in the pavement, each tree that shed its leaves and grew them back again. Every season came, every season went, and she kept sitting there. 10 years passed. Children who once giggled at her presence now walked by with their own children. The world changed. New trains arrived. New buildings replaced old ones. The fountain where she and Thomas first kissed was torn down and replaced with a modern kiosk. But Eleanor remained. People stopped whispering. She had become a part of the station, like the cracked benches or the pigeons that never left. She was not pitied anymore. She was respected, in a quiet, tragic way. Sometimes strangers sat beside her and asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" And she would answer with a gentle nod, "Yes, I am." They never asked more. Every birthday, she wore the blue dress. Every anniversary of his departure, she placed violets by the tracks. Every time a young couple walked by holding hands, she looked away, but not in jealousy, only in aching remembrance. She had been in love, truly, fully, beautifully in love. And that love had chosen silence, but Eleanor had chosen to answer it with loyalty. By the 20th year, she stopped telling anyone why she came. By the 30th, no one even asked anymore. But every morning, at exactly 8 o'clock, the station clock would chime, and Eleanor would be there, sitting, waiting, believing. The journal was bound in worn brown leather, the corners frayed, the spine cracked from years of use. Eleanor held it in her trembling hands, as if it might crumble with a single breath. The young woman, her name was Clara, sat beside her, silent, watching with reverence. She had not spoken again since offering the journal. As if she understood that this was not a moment for voices, but for silence, Eleanor opened the first page. The handwriting was unmistakably his. Slanted, neat, with occasional loops at the end of each Y. She traced her fingers across the name written at the top. Thomas Whitmore, 1947. Her vision blurred. Not from age but from the sudden flood of memory, his hand resting on her back as they walked. The sound of his laugh in the bookstore, the exact way he had once written her name on the inside of a paper napkin. She turned the page. March 2nd, 1947. I am alive. I have food. I have work. But my soul is restless. I cannot sleep at night without seeing her eyes. Her silence is louder than war. Eleanor pressed the page to her chest. He had written about her, thought about her, longed for her. In all those years when the world gave her nothing but silence, he had been writing to her across time, across distance. April 17, 1948. I have written Eleanor 37 letters. I do not know if any of them reached her. I fear she has moved on. She deserves to. I am no longer the man she kissed goodbye. Her hands trembled. She never received any letters, not one. The mailbox had remained empty for decades. Her mother had checked it every morning for the first year, then stopped. Where did the letters go? June 9, 1950. I broke my leg last winter. A fever followed. I was taken to a small clinic where no one spoke my name correctly. I nearly died, but all I thought about was the bench. That damn bench. Was she still there? Yes, she had been. September 3, 1951. I married Evelyn. I told her the truth before the ceremony. I told her about Eleanor. She said, "A man who can love like that should not be alone." I wept that night. Eleanor stopped reading. The words struck her like thunder, unexpected and echoing in every corner of her body. He had married. He had built a life. She should have expected it, but the pain arrived anyway, sharp and real. It was not betrayal she felt, but grief for something that could never be. And yet, he had told her. He had been honest, and the honesty made it harder to hate him. She continued. November 12, 1956. We have a son. His name is Henry. But when I look at him, I think of her. I wonder what her children might have looked like. I wonder what kind of mother she would have been. Eleanor's shoulders shook. She did not sob aloud, but the tears spilled freely now, tracing down her cheeks and into the journal. She clutched the pages, as if holding on to a life raft in a storm. January 20th, 1965. I saw a woman in the station last week. She looked like Eleanor. I nearly ran to her. But it was not her. I realized then that I had begun searching for ghosts. She closed her eyes. She had become a ghost too. May 14th, 1973. I have cancer. They say it is spreading. I am not afraid to die. I am only afraid she never knew, that she waited, and believed, and cursed me for not keeping my word. The ink in that entry was darker, pressed deeper into the page, as if he had written it with shaking hands and desperate breath. Final page. To whoever finds this. I loved Eleanor Grace with everything I had. If she still waits, if she still breathes, tell her I never forgot. Tell her I was always hers, even when I could not be. Clara sat quietly, her eyes on the pigeons flying above the tracks. I found this in my father's closet after he passed, she said finally. He never spoke of your name out loud, but he kept this journal hidden behind his uniforms, and he told me to come here, to find the woman who waited. Eleanor wiped her eyes. Her voice was thin, broken, but steady. He loved me, she whispered. He truly did. Clara nodded. He loved you every day of his life. They sat in silence for a long while. The train arrived. The clock struck 8, but Eleanor did not stand. For the first time in 40 years, she did not rise to search the faces in the window. She did not scan the crowd. She did not count the seconds. She simply sat, breathing. The weight of 40 years did not vanish. But now, it finally made sense. The sun had not yet risen fully when Eleanor Grace arrived at the station. It was early, earlier than she had ever come. The streets were still quiet, the world not yet awake, and the platform bathed in a dim, amber stillness. She moved slowly, but with purpose. Her cane tapped softly on the old stone floor as she walked past the ticket booth, now operated by a young man who had never known her story, just her silhouette. She chose her usual bench, the third one from the left, under the large clock, the same bench where she had waited for decades, where seasons had changed, presidents had come and gone, wars had started and ended, but she had remained, with her scarf, her tea, her silence. This morning, though, was different. She wore the navy blue dress she had worn on the day Thomas left, pressed the way he liked it. Her silver hair was tied back in a neat bun, and around her neck hung the chain she had never removed, a tiny locket, with a faded picture of the two of them, laughing at the beach. She sat down and let out a long, trembling breath, not because she was tired, but because something inside her had quietly settled. You would laugh at me, Thomas, she whispered to the empty tracks. You always said I was too dramatic, but I am not sad today. I swear I am not. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, betraying her. She reached into her handbag and pulled out the journal Clara had brought her. It now looked worn, its corners curled from days of being held and read over and over. She placed it beside her on the bench, and then she looked up, toward the horizon, where the tracks vanished into a pale morning mist. I know what happened now, she said softly. You tried to come back. You really did. You never stopped loving me. And I never stopped waiting, even when everyone told me I should. A station worker passed by, nodding politely. Good morning, Miss Grace. Eleanor smiled and nodded back. She did not tell him this would be her last morning. She did not tell anyone. Only Clara knew she had come this early, and Clara had protested. worried about her walking alone. But Eleanor had smiled gently and said, "Some goodbyes must be done in silence." As the light grew stronger, she began to remember, not just the pain, but the joy. The first time she met Thomas, how he had asked her for the time just to hear her voice, how he had written her poems on napkins and mailed her letters even when they lived in the same town, how he had once waited 5 hours in the rain just to walk her home with one umbrella between them, and how, on this very bench, he had kissed her forehead before leaving for his train. She closed her eyes and imagined it, the weight of his hand, the warmth of his breath, the sound of the train pulling away as her heart broke inside her chest. But today, her heart was full, not broken, because now she knew, now she had his words, now she had the truth. "You tried to return. You never forgot me." The journal had told her everything. The delayed letters, the accident, the recovery, the plan to surprise her, and the cruel twist of fate that kept him from ever making it back. 40 years, she had not wasted them. She had loved every memory, protected every moment, and held a space for him no one else could fill. The station began to stir with movement. People arrived. Trains came and went. Announcements echoed. But Eleanor sat still, eyes closed, hands folded neatly, and then without a sound her chest stopped rising. She did not gasp. She did not shiver. She simply ceased, as gently and gracefully as a candle going out. When Clara arrived an hour later, she knew. She ran to her side, sobbing, shaking her gently. "Eleanor, please, no." But Eleanor's face was peaceful, a small, almost playful smile on her lips, like she had just remembered something lovely, like she was hearing Thomas's voice calling her name from beyond the mist. The journal lay open beside her, the last page, written in Eleanor's own hand, fluttered in the wind. August 3rd, 1993. Today, I am not afraid, because today, I feel close to you. The tracks no longer seem empty. The station no longer feels lonely. I waited for you once. You tried to return. Now, it is my turn. When I see you again, I will say nothing. I will only take your hand, and we will walk slowly, quietly toward forever. And the wind carried those words, like a whisper, across the tracks, beyond the station, to a place where time has no meaning, where trains always arrive on time, and where love finally rests.